So you have a pot, you have popcorn. We'll need oil. Like a high heat oil is best with a like a high smoke point, they say. So you don't want to do butter for the actual kernels. It's gonna burn. Sometimes I use this. Hi Zoe. But movie theaters use like coconut oil. It's actually palm oil. It has a much higher smoke point. This kind of burns when I use it pretty quickly. You want it to be, popcorn has to cook between 400 and 460. It needs to be super hot for it to pop. So also like extra virgin olive oil is not ideal because it has a lower smoke point, but you can use it. It's not the end of the world. An olive oil that's like a not extra virgin, like a refined olive oil works well, but usually we don't have that. So corn oil, vegetable oil, peanut oil, sunflower oil, grapeseed oil, avocado oil, any of those are great. If you need to get an oil, do it. If you only have olive oil, that's chill. It's okay. Just like in the future. Yeah, that's perfect. That's what I'm using. I have this sort of Babylon brand sunflower oil that I've been using. It works great.
Canola oil is good.
Yeah, that's great. Canola oil is great. Okay. Popcorn comparisons. You can get bulk popcorn. Zoe, you're just laughing the whole time. I love it. That's wonderful to buy bulk always, of course. Sometimes it's kind of stale. That's the only thing. But it's cheapest, no packaging. This is from Squirrel before they closed. Every restaurant turned into a grocery store real quick. So I got some more popcorn.
How can you tell if it's stale?
You kind of can't. I mean, you can base it on where you're shopping. You can't really tell until you're biting into it, and then you'll be like, "Oh, this is a soft, not exciting bite."
But if it seems like a place where lots of people are buying popcorn,
there's something called holeless popcorn, which is a little more expensive and a little fancier, and frankly, a lie. It's not holeless because the whole is the seed, right? The whole is the kernel itself. But holeless means it's smaller and lighter, like the actual whole when it pops, it doesn't get stuck in your teeth in the same way that regular popcorn does. It just sort of like turns into these delicate little pieces. So if you're, if you have braces, maybe you can get away with eating it. If you're worried about hurting your teeth, that's a good one. You guys want to know about the history of popcorn a little bit? Okay, so I took some notes. Just kidding, I knew this. It came from Mexico, or what is now Mexico. That's where they first found it, like over 10,000 years ago. Oh, Tempe. And it started in America. It started getting popular not till like the late 1800s on the East Coast. That's kind of where the popcorn thing happened. What? Zoe, do you have a comment?
I saw Bunny.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Let's start by making seasoning. So you're ready. You have your pot, your oil. If you want to put butter on it, you'll want to start melting the butter right before you start popping it. But I wrote down a couple recipes for some seasonings if you want to make that. God. I made them already, but I can do it again. It's fun to have some seasoning salts around, and you can use it for other stuff too. So you can kind of make as much as you want. I have a couple things. Here is, you can screenshot it or something if that works. Is this like big enough, Liz? Yeah. Okay. Here's one idea. Can everybody see it? Also, it's a cool screenshot of me like burping and holding them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is a very flexible idea. You know, you can use what you have. Right now we're all using just what's already at our house. Here's another one. This is an herby thing. So cool. You'll notice there's sugar in these. You can leave it out if you want, but that's sort of a little secret weapon. For savory things, you might not guess that there's some sugar in there, but that will make it like explode with flavor in your mouth. So I recommend always adding a little sugar to your popcorn seasoning. Okay. Do you guys want to take a minute to make maybe an herb salt so it's ready to go when we make our popcorn? Let's do that. If you have a small jar of some kind, that's perfect. If you don't, just a little bowl is great. I make it in the bowl first and then transfer it. This isn't a waffle show. I'm sorry, Lindsay. Okay. So I'm looking in my spice drawer for whatever. I also will say the first one, that is paprika, chili, cinnamon, cumin, things like that. I would say this is like pork, if y'all eat meat. And this herb salt with the thyme and sage is like chicken or poultry. So it's cool to have these around. You can use it for other things besides popcorn. Okay. So I'm getting some spices.
How much oil do you think it's the good amount?
Yeah, we'll get into that, but you definitely want to have more than you think. So if you're doing like a half a cup of kernels, you would do like a fourth or even a third of a cup of oil. It's like a good half an inch, or like at least covering it with like some, like a little pool on the bottom. I'm gonna do the herb salt, starting with a tablespoon of salt, And a teaspoon of sugar. A teaspoon of thyme. Excuse me, I kind of just woke up. You can use a teaspoon of thyme, and if you have sage, the same amount, or maybe a little less sage than thyme. I kind of like that too, but up to you. I'm gonna do half a teaspoon of sage. A little oregano. You can take it or leave it, frankly. Depends on what you like. Thyme is kind of my favorite, and I think it goes really well. Makes for a nice savory popcorn. And then pepper. I like a lot of pepper. Oh, something to note about pepper. I really like spicy food. So I think red pepper flakes are nice on popcorn sometimes, but I do not recommend cayenne powder because when you eat popcorn, you're like inhaling popcorn and it's too fine and you'll be like coughing the whole way through. It's not fun. It doesn't translate. So don't put cayenne on your popcorn. Okay. So we have some fun flavors. Now let's cook some popcorn. Is that okay with everyone? Who is actually doing this, like you two? I'm going to, okay, so let's talk about this also. This is the Whirly Pop, which is so cool. I use it all the time. My parents must use it all the time, right, guys? Because I got you one for Christmas. It is a specific contraption, but I have to say, it doesn't just sit in the drawer. It gets used all the time. It is especially thin. It's just like an aluminum pot, so it gets hot super fast, which is ideal for popcorn. And that has this little thing that turns the kernel so nothing burns. And it has these big slots in the top to let out the steam. If you have a really heavy top with no slits, it can also make your popcorn sort of soggy. So couple things you can do. It's okay, it's not the end of the world. You can just use a regular pot with a regular lid. But we'll make sure the oil gets hot first and test it with one kernel. And then put the lid on. I can hear myself, Louisa. Put the lid on, and as soon as it's done, take it off. That can kind of help. Another thing you can do if you don't have a lid that has steam release holes is use aluminum foil. I'm kind of in the mode of not wanting to use things I have to throw away, so I get that if you don't want to. But you can use foil for a lid and poke 4 holes in it and just make a tight seal and hold it with your, oven mitt. So that's a pro tip, if you will, if you're ending up with some soggy kernels. Okay, so let's make them. Another thing about popcorn really quick. Okay, maybe you've noticed there's two kinds of popcorn shapes, right? There's the mushroom popcorn and butterfly or snowflake popcorn. If you buy, hi bud, if you buy caramel corn or like chocolate popcorn or something at the airport, they're gonna be like all mushroom ones. Have you noticed that? They're like a round popcorn. And usually at home, you get mostly the snowflake kind. Naturally, popcorn just happens in both ways, but really recently, like or about 20 years ago, they modified it and they made like just the mushroom kind because it's hardier. So you can like manufacture a heavy duty popcorn. That's kind of interesting. So if you see something that says like mushroom popcorn and you're like, gross, that's not what they mean. I made a drawing actually in my notes yesterday. See, that's like a mushroom guy. And there's your butterfly. Check it out after you make popcorn. See how many, no, not see how many, but you're gonna find both kinds of popcorn. Okay, let's do it. So if you want to measure out, I never measure things, but obviously it's a good time to start. Let's do this. At least a fourth, maybe like a third of a cup of oil in the bottom of your pot. Yeah, I think like a third of a cup, guys. I'm using the regular pot today just because most people don't have a whirly pot. Okay. So the oil is in, and I'm gonna put it on high heat. Oh, I almost forgot. You want to have your bowl like ready right next to it because everything's so hot. As soon as it's done, you want to dump it out of the pot as soon as possible. So I'm going to get a big bowl. Have it ready. A little bit wet. Another way to avoid burning your popcorn is to turn off the heat when it slows down, not when it stops completely. So when you start hearing like, let's say 3 seconds and it's like one pop, just turn it off and dump it. Hi, Gia. Getting pretty hot, guys. I'm gonna use this regular old popcorn. We'll see how stale it is. Another thing to look for with bulk popcorn, you can see sometimes, I'm not really seeing it in this one, which is great. Sometimes you'll see like a hole in the actual, a whole H-O-L-E in the actual H-U-L-L. And that is from a disgusting little beetle that travels in bulk bins and will eat just through your popcorn. And then you eat it and it's not going to hurt you, but it's not that cool, if you ask me. It also it makes it like stale and mealy and kind of weird. Okay, so this is so hot. I'm going to put one in to see if it pops. It's not popping yet. I'm going to measure out half a cup. You don't have to measure it. All the pots are a little different. You just want to have an even single layer on the bottom. Probably not more than that, because then it might overflow, which has happened to me a lot of times, and it's not that bad. It actually will, like, there it goes, will lift up the lid in a cartoony way. It doesn't really go everywhere. Okay, so it pops. So I'm going to put everything in. And shake it above the flame, like just above. Turn this down a tiny bit. It's kind of crazy. It's going.
This is a crazy sound through my AirPods. I don't know if anyone else has that experience.
Sorry.
Not crazy.
Right. Okay. So that's it. Definitely wasn't too much popcorn. I could have made more. Another thing, don't worry about making too much, because it actually really keeps well. Look, nothing left, nothing burned. And it's kind of got a little like oil on it. So I often just skip like melting butter, which is delicious, but it's kind of a pain. It's not very healthy. So if you use enough oil, it's already kind of like got a little bit of a sticky sheen on it. Another thing you can do is drizzle a little olive oil and toss it. That's really nice and helps your spices to stick to it. I'm not going to do any oil, which is something I do sometimes. Okay, even if you're using these wonderful spices that we made, pretty much always put this on there. Nutritional yeast. It's so good. A great combo is just lots of salt, lots of butter, lots of nutritional yeast. This is already salty, but I think doing like a fine salt, that's the key too. If you're gonna be making popcorn a lot, you should have the finest salt you can get in your house. It really is a game changer for popcorn. Really coats it. So, okay, first I'm gonna put on my little herby blend to taste, but I'll tell you what, it's usually more than you think. Go nuts. This kind of smells like Thanksgiving to me, which I'm into. Lucia, how's it going? I can't hear anything, but you can do it. Okay, so dressing it. Also, nutritional yeast is truly nutritional. It's so good for you. If you're vegan, it's a full protein. It has tons of B vitamins, lots of B12. A wonderful thing to add to your popcorn. Popcorn is actually really healthy. It's so cheap. It's so good for you until you add a bunch of garbage on top, which we will always do.
Can I add something about nutrition? From something that I learned from school, is that darker corn tend to be a lot more nutritious. I want to share 1 second my screen just to show, because I'm trying to like describe it, but it's not very easy. But
Nice.
tell me if
Kristen
you
and
can
Jackie,
see.
are you? Yeah,
I don't know
it's true.
if you
This
can
is an
see
heirloom
these.
corn, and often the corns that are you can buy, like a nice brand is something called Rancho Gordo. They sell beans. And they're always really fresh. They also do a lovely heirloom popcorn, and the whole is really dark, like Lele's talking about, but it pops bright white. Yeah, look, Kristen is showing it. She has an heirloom blend. I think, Lucia, you also had like some cool, yeah, that's great. So popcorn has iron and protein and antioxidants in it just naturally. It's pretty good for you.
Does that mean that regular
But yeah,
all that too?
regular popcorn has that too. Is that the question?
Corn. Does that mean that regular corn has all of that?
Oh, yes. I'm gonna say yes.
Corn gets a bad rap.
It does. It's starchy.
Well,
it's sugary.
I think that it's been used in such a bad way that's why it gets the bad rap. In America, they choose to modify it in a way that could be used for so many other products that then it strips down all of that nutritions and things that originally used to have more. I think that's why.
And so much of the corn we have is GMO too, I guess, right?
It's pretty much, yeah. Almost all of it probably is, even if it's not. Because seeds don't really keep to themselves. And here we are, 2020, eating breakfast popcorn. Hi, Carter. Lucia, how did your popcorn go in that pot?
Some of the kernels were like not interested in popping and they just got really dark, but it's like, you know, got some popcorn.
Okay, cool. Great. I think that's about it, you guys. Like I said, you can store popcorn for many days in a little airtight container, and it keeps really well. Any questions? Anything I didn't cover that would be helpful?
What went wrong that time you burned my popcorn pot and I had to throw it out?
I don't know what you're talking about. Must have been the pot. See, I've come a long way from ruining pots to teaching the people about popcorn. We all have to start somewhere. I hope this is an inspiration to any of you who have.
What are your
First of
views
all.
on air poppers?
Oh, I love an air popper. I would not kick it out of bed. It's a healthy choice. I don't put, the old ones, the one we grew up with, and I think most of them have this little tray on top where you put like a pat of butter to melt it, and it's a plastic tray.
Yeah, well, no,
So
yeah.
that's disgusting. That's my thought on that. Don't melt butter in plastic, but besides that, an air popper is wonderful and really healthy. But that's not what we're talking about today, are we?